Are you aware of why Orlando was targeted?
I'm aware of a lot of things that was going on. People ain't talked about it in 30 years. Today ain't one of them.
I'm not going to speak on Orlando.
That is James McDonald, better known as Mob James. He's one of the original figures around Death Row Records, and nearly 30 years after Tupac's life was cut short, both James and Death Row's former security chief, Reggie Wright Jr., have now been forced to testify about what happened behind the scenes on the night Tupac passed away. And when you put their testimonies together, you get an extremely interesting picture. They talked about why Tupac's security was increased before his death, an earlier armed confrontation involving Tupac and some people associated with Bad Boy, why Tupac only had one of Reggie Wright's security guards with him the night that he passed, and what allegedly happened in the street of Compton after Tupac passed away. And on Mob James' end, he made it clear from the beginning that there were certain things he just wasn't going to talk about.
Talk to your lawyer, man. This dude is tripping. I'm not going to explain that. I can't answer that.
So let's break down what these two Death Row insiders actually told the jury. But before we get into it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hype up this video. That's how you show YouTube's algorithm that you enjoy this kind of content. And that's how you let me know that you want me to keep covering this Tupac case. And like I said in my last video, I live in Las Vegas, so if we could get enough traction on this video and it makes sense, I'll even go to one of the court dates in person to give you guys even better coverage. But now back to the video. So first, it's important to understand why these two witnesses matter. Mob James testified that he knew Suge Knight from their neighborhood back in Compton, and that he was involved with Death Row from its beginning before Reggie Wright Jr. arrived. And James, he wasn't making records. Listen to how he describes what Suge would use him for.
I was the guy that, if something happened, Suge would have you take care of that.
And you were somebody that Suge relied on to be able to protect his roster of music artists and other things like that.
Correct.
Meanwhile, Reggie Wright Jr. handled Death Row's security operation, and that distinction becomes very important later, because Reggie's professional security and James's group of guys from the neighborhood were not the same thing. And Mob James himself described them as two separate operations.
We had at least 30, 40 of my homeboys there, so that was two different entities, Reggie and Suge. The police gonna walk you out of there. We gonna drag you out of there. So it was a difference.
And according to Mob James, by 1996, Death Row got intertwined into something much deeper than music.
Now, during this time, is it fair to say that Mr. Shakur had an issue with rappers from the East Coast?
I think Tupac inherited the beef between Suge Knight and Puffy. Some of us fell victim to it because we allowed ourselves to be a part of the BS, should I say. And that was a situation between record companies, not gangs. So technically it wasn't our business. But when you had getting a paycheck from Suge, we did almost anything and everything to get that paycheck.
But it was after this when James mentioned another factor that made everything much more dangerous. And that was when he testified that the beef between Bad Boy and Death Row allegedly became intertwined with another already existing rivalry.
When the two record companies got into it, Bad Boy went to Keepy D now, and Suge came to us. So that intertwined everything, and yes, we had issues.
And Reggie Wright Jr. also testified about those tensions from a security side. And according to Reggie, one Tupac song actually made them change the way that they protected him.
After this particular song came out, about May or June, we upped it to 2 security officers. It was a song called Hit 'Em Up.
And is it fair to say that in that song, Tupac is aggressively expressing his dislike for the members of Bad Boy Entertainment as well as other artists?
That's fair to say.
And as a result of that, you decided to change security for Tupac or increase it?
Well, I was a part of the discussion and ultimately had to approve it, but I'm sure Mr. Knight, possibly Mr. Shakur, and maybe the security officer that was primarily with them, we all agreed that he probably needed another guy with him.
And Reggie testified that members of the Southside Compton Crips were being used by Bad Boy when associates of Bad Boy came to the West Coast, and he identified that as the same gang that he understood Keefy D belonged to. But here's when everything got more interesting. Reggie would discuss a confrontation from before Tupac's death where things came super close to becoming deadly.
Was there ever a time where Death Row and you and whatever other unofficial security Death Row had a clash with Bad Boy and the Southside Compton Crips at all?
Yes, we had it at a Soul Train's Music Awards. I previously stated that Mr. Davis was with him, and I even think I might have even said that he was one of the ones close to the guy with the gun. Never said he was the one with the gun, but there's been out there, social media, where a gentleman has came out and admitted that he was the one that actually had the gun that particular incident by the name of C. Gutter.
Okay, that was before him. Tell us what happened at the Soul Train Music Awards.
We pulled in. Originally, we had an entourage of about 50 people with us. Mr. Shakur and a few of the outlaws was inside of a Hummer, and myself and Frank, which was Tupac's security that night, Mr. Shakur's security that night. We drove in behind them. As we was getting out of the vehicle, Mr. Shakur saw Christopher Wallace. Mr. Shakur immediately became enraged and started yelling, and confrontation between Mr. Small, Biggie, and Mr. Shakur took place to the point where one of their guys brandished a weapon. And then that's when I pulled my firearm and towards him and begged with him, pleaded with him not to raise the gun. There was some security from the Nation of Islam there. They got in the middle of it, broke us up. The gentleman took off and ran.
I'm sorry, who ran towards the street?
The gentleman with the gun and a couple of the people that was with him took off and ran.
Now, you said that Southside was providing that type of backup.
They were with them in entourage or something.
Do you recall whether Dwayne Davis was one of those people?
I know he was with them, but like I said, I don't believe he was the one with the gun.
Reggie went on to describe that incident as an armed confrontation involving two groups, and he also placed Keefe D at the scene of that confrontation, which gives an even stronger motive for him allegedly playing a role in the death of Tupac Shakur. Now, as you probably know, on the night Tupac lost his life, he was in Las Vegas for a Mike Tyson fight and was supposed to perform later at Club 662. But according to Reggie's testimony, Suge Knight was running late, and Tupac apparently got tired of waiting.
So on this particular night, Tupac is upset because Suge is obviously late and calls you.
His bodyguard Frank called, but he got on the phone. You know anything about Mr. Shakur, he's a hands-on guy. And he eventually just said, hey, you can't get a hold to him, we gone. And they took a taxi over to the fight.
But pay attention to who was with Tupac. Frank Alexander, one bodyguard from Reggie Wright Jr.'s security team, and under cross-examination, the defense goes directly at Reggie about this.
Frank Alexander, you have Tupac, and no other bodyguards protecting Tupac that night.
Mr. Kevin Heckey was supposed to attend. He wasn't there, and I didn't know that he hadn't shown up yet.
And you only assign one person and another person calls in sick?
He didn't call in sick, he just didn't show up. But, yeah, I mean, it wasn't unusual for Mr. Shakur to roll around with one guy and his outlaw guys.
But once again, you're telling us it's only Frank Alexander that's coming from your outfit, right?
That is correct.
Now this needs context. Reggie says it wasn't unusual for Tupac to move around with one professional security guard and the members of the Outlaws. And when asked why he didn't send more security, Reggie's answer was essentially, if he knew what was going to happen, then of course he would have sent more security. So this testimony isn't establishing that Reggie Wright intentionally left Tupac vulnerable, but it does establish something pretty remarkable. And that's that according to Reggie, they had already talked about beefing up Tupac's security team, yet on this night, only Frank Alexander ended up with him. Now on Mob James' side, he said that his entire job that night was to make sure that nothing was going on at the club, and that they were prepared for any trouble that could happen.
Why were you in Las Vegas?
To run security at 662, we were having issues with individuals who said that they were coming for whatever reason they was coming for and to come to 662. My job was to not let that happen. We were the fall guys. So if something happened, we was the one that's going to go to jail for it. Prepared to do that. If anybody remember that night, it was so many Metro and everybody there. No, neither side could have did anything. It was calm, it was peaceful.
So you've got Tupac moving around Las Vegas with one right-way guard. Meanwhile, James says dozens of his guys were at the club that Tupac was eventually supposed to reach. And it was while he was waiting there when everything changes, because at the MGM Grand, Tupac and his entourage attack Orlando Anderson, and later that night, before Tupac ever reached the club, him and Suge Knight were shot.
People was coming back and was explaining that Tupac and Suge just got shot. Everybody was in a uproar. A lot of people started leaving, trying to get over there on Cobalt. We couldn't leave because we didn't pay to do this here. The majority of the people was leaving and then coming back because that night they said Tupac was going to be all right. And even Suge came back with a little bandage on his head. And we thought everything was good. People kept partying.
And that's one of the sadder details. Everybody thought that Tupac was gonna be okay, so they just kept on partying. But as you know, that was not the case. And almost immediately, people from Death Row have one question on their mind. What happens when everybody gets back to Compton? And this is where Reggie Wright Jr. and Mob James' testimony connect almost perfectly. You see, Reggie testified that during that night he was speaking to his father on the phone, and according to him, information was circulating around the club that Death Row's group had gotten into an altercation at the MGM with some Southside Compton Crips. So Reggie had warned his father.
And I told him, hey, it's going to be trouble back in Compton.
When we got back to Compton, it was a gang war. People were getting hurt. Orlando, him, and certain other people were being assaulted because people wanted to kill them.
And that might be one of the most important connections between the two testimonies. Reggie says he predicted the trouble, and James said when he returned, it became what he had described as a gang war. Now keep in mind, neither Mob James or Reggie was actually there when Tupac lost his life, and what they're describing are situations that happened before and after Tupac's death. And according to Mob James, after Tupac passed, Orlando Anderson was one of the main people being targeted in his death, which led to prosecutors asking what he knew about Orlando, and he said that Orlando was beaten at the MGM and that type of thing could demand a response.
Compton was on fire at the time. Orlando got beat up in there, and that's something you don't tolerate. So you was gonna get some repercussion from that and everything else that was going on.
The prosecutors then asked the obvious question, why was Orlando targeted at the MGM? And James, he shut that down. This is what he had to say.
I'm aware of a lot of things. People ain't talked about it in 30 years. Today ain't one of them. A lot of things happened that night. A lot of things happened weeks and weeks after that night.
I'm not going to speak on Orlando.
Again, don't turn that into James saying that he knew who killed Tupac, because he didn't say that. He didn't pass the blame on to Keefe D. But what made the moment more significant was when they were trying to get more information on Orlando and Mob James just refused to answer. And during this next part, Mob James was asked about a rumor that he was knocked out by Tupac, and his answer gives you an idea on how serious retaliation was taken back then.
There was a rumor that Tupac had knocked you out one time.
I'd have killed him.
That would have been your response if that happened.
I'm being honest with you and everybody else. I said it on my podcast show. Him, Suge, and my brother. I'd have shot all three of them if he touched me. That's what I was back then.
And James would then explain that in the culture he participated in, allowing someone to publicly disrespect you without responding could damage your reputation. And his testimony is simply that certain things need to be dealt with. And now that doesn't prove why Tupac was killed, but it does explain a gang member's expectation of retaliation, especially after an incident like Orlando's beating. Now, when the defense tried to figure out exactly how people from Compton knew what was going on back in Vegas, this is when things got heated.
The information that I'm asking about is the people that back home, you're saying were eyewitnesses to this?
How could people back home be eyewitnesses to something that happened in Vegas? No, that's not what I'm saying.
Listen to my question, sir. The people that were here in Las Vegas, you're telling me were eyewitnesses to what happened and went back home. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you, the people that was at 662.
Just answer my question, sir. Yes or no?
I can't
Is it
answer
a
that
yes or no?
without a what you call it. You trying to tell me to say something that you're not going to understand. I'm not answering nothing. I was at 662. I know everybody that was there.
Okay. Like who?
Talk to your lawyer, man. This dude is tripping. I'm not going to explain that.
Eventually, James does explain what he means. He said people left Vegas that night and drove back to Compton, while some people also had ways to communicate between Vegas and Compton.
Let me ask you this next question then. You are telling us that people back in Compton, for some reason, knew what happened here in Las Vegas.
People found out when people left Las Vegas the same night Tupac was shot. They had walkie-talkies. They had all kinds of phones. They had ways to call people to say whatever. Because it was a situation. Pac was shot. Retaliation is a mug. Come on, man. It was for real, for real. All of this was for real.
And all of this brings us to one of the biggest conspiracy theories surrounding Tupac's death. For years, Reggie Wright has faced accusations claiming that people inside of death row had something to do with Tupac's death. And when Reggie was asked if he had anything to do with Tupac's murder, he said absolutely not. But what's more interesting is that prosecutors actually asked Mob James about Reggie, and James didn't hesitate.
Was Reggie with you when you found out that Tupac and Suge were shot?
Yes.
And did it appear to you in any way that Reggie Wright Jr. was coordinating the murder of Tupac Shakur?
Impossible.
There have been some conspiracy theories that Reggie Wright Jr. is responsible for the murder of Tupac.
And it's so not true. If Reggie killed Tupac, then death row is over with. Tupac was the money source. Tupac was that guy at death row. People say what they want to say.
Again, that's Mob James's opinion, and independently at least, it doesn't prove that every theory against death row was false. But his reasoning was pretty straightforward. Tupac was immensely valuable to death row, and James believes Suge would have spoken up and said something if Reggie Wright betrayed him. Now that's pretty much all the juicy moments from the two different testimonies. And I think the biggest takeaway is just how chaotic the whole situation actually was. Now, if you made it this far into the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hype up the video. We're so close to 10,000 subscribers. We're gonna keep trying to post every single day after we hit it. And like I said earlier, I'm in Las Vegas, so if we can get traction on this Tupac case, I'll show up to one of the court dates to give you guys even better coverage. Lastly, check out one of these videos on the screen. YouTube thinks you might enjoy it. But in case I don't see you guys, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Peace.